Hello and welcome back to my Gilman Scholarship video log. Before watching this video, I definitely suggest that you go through the general guidance video for the Gilman Scholarship because there's a lot of information in there that I think is quite useful, but I will not be covering again in this video. Those of you who have applied to schools in the past or potentially done personal statements for scholarships and the like, will have a pretty similar document to what they're asking for here. The schools call it a personal statement. Some scholarships call it whatever. Some of them call it a personal statement. But the general idea is the same. It sort of gives an overview of who you are and why you would fit this school / scholarship / Gilman Scholarship specifically. And it can be really helpful to have a document such as this that's well refined because actually I've used mine recently in applying to law schools, so I've of course retooled it, but it's generally the same and I did not have to put nearly as much work into it because I had such a well-developed one. It took me, I don't know, 5 hours maybe to retool it for law schools, and through that application process I did get a full tuition scholarship offer from William S. Boyd School of Law and a $20,000 offer per year, of course, from the University of Idaho. And while I would love to go to somewhere that would give me a full tuition scholarship, they also offered a small stipend. Because I've already had Aria, who is my wife, move to go to school with me once, I really don't think it's fair to either move myself and leave her here or have her move with me again, as she is still in school at the University of Idaho, and for that reason I decided to stay in Idaho. But that's sort of beyond the point that I'm trying to make here, is that it can be really useful, and I know that it can be probably useful for job application purposes. I've sort of retooled it for one application generally, but yeah, I don't know. I've not really had any employers looking for that much information about me as a person, but maybe if you're working on a CV or a cover letter, it could be helpful. I'm sure for probably a cover letter it could be pretty helpful. And that's because it goes over a lot of things that many different groups would want to know, specifically like achievements and extracurriculars, academics, all sorts of these different things, like what you've done and what makes you a viable applicant for XYZ application. In the Gilman Scholarship specifically, they want to make sure that you answer 4 questions. How will studying or interning abroad help you achieve your future academic or professional goals? And really, it can be academic and professional goals. As an example, for my application, I'm going to law school. And I knew that I was going to law school before I did this application. I just didn't know specifically where yet. And so when I was doing this application, I was considering how could this help me in my professional goals of going to law school. And one of the benefits of completing your Gilman Scholarship process is that once you finish as a Gilman Scholar, you get preferential hiring for the federal government, and I actually want to practice law for the federal government. We'll see how that goes or not, but getting preferential hiring would be great. Of course, this only lasts for 3 years after your Gilman Scholarship program time, so for me that means that after I finish law school, I'll have like just a few months left of that deferred preferential hiring. But still, it's a great opportunity, and with law school, I'm pretty sure people generally have their first job lined up sort of during law school, or at least they really try to. And I think that I could be able to take advantage of that. Hopefully, I think that'd be a great opportunity. And I say as much in my application process. I also bring up the fact that, I'm studying environmental science for my undergraduate, so I bring up how I want to know their take on environmental science and environmental stewardship and see how that compares to the United States and see maybe what things that they do well here and what things maybe we do well back home compared to here, so that in my future working I can take advantage of any insights that I gain and bring those up when it's opportune. Obviously, I'm not going to start out being some super impressive person who's making massive sweeping changes, but it's not like that experience is going to leave me just because I'm a entry-level lawyer at a law firm or what have you. Anyways, another question that you're supposed to answer is, why did you select your specific program and host country? This is an interesting question. It's very similar to the why our school or why this job question that you might get in other applications processes. And though this isn't asking you why the Gilman, it's asking you why the country. But even still, part of this application process is definitely the process of researching which school you're going to go to and which country you want to go to. And through this process of researching, you should have a pretty firm understanding of why you want to go there. And it doesn't always have to be, well, I want to go here because my great-great-grandpappy went here before. There is a component of this process, of this scholarship, that has to do with your personal proclivities. If you want to go there because you think it's pretty, or heaven forbid because you want to go to Japan and like anime, you can bring that up. You're a real living person who has legitimate interest, and they want to get to know you, at least in part. And so bringing up what you're interested in and why you want to go here, even if it's cringeworthy to some, or if, I don't know, you think that it's pretty basic, it doesn't mean that it's not valid. Of course, try to make sure that it's a robust reasoning, and maybe don't put your application on going to Japan just on the concept that you really like anime, and try and shore up that idea with a few more points. But definitely be sure to consider and to present the reasons that you're actually going. For me, I am fairly certain that my genealogy originates from here, if you can't tell by the general placid appearance. Of course, those who are white are not all from England, though I'm pretty sure my dad did a test that said his genealogy was generally from England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. So that's around here. I actually had originally wanted to go to Scotland, no offense to England, but there was like a whole thing about that, and it was really expensive to go to the University of it wasn't Scotland. I don't remember the University of something, and the same case applied to the Ireland. They're all just way more expensive than here. So, and that's another thing you can consider, because just because you're getting money from the Gilman Scholarship does not mean that you can afford to go to where you want to go. Be sure to consider where you're applying to and how much it'll cost, because the Gilman Scholarship only gives you so much. Anyways, sorry, but why you're choosing your program actually applies to that, because one of my reasons that I gave them was that my university has an exchange program, and I can probably afford this with the help of the Gilman Scholarship. Again, I know that sounds pretty basic, but it is important to note that it shows forethought into your application process, because what you're saying is, I've researched this. I know I'm broke. That's the foundation of this scholarship in some ways. And in considering that I'm broke, I think this is the right place to go. Amongst other things, I also brought up the fact that I really like suits, and England's known to be the home of suits, and I wanted to go to a place called Savile Row to get a suit, or maybe just England in general. Savile Row is probably really expensive, but it's like the international home of suits, and I love suits. But because I'm going to law school, and I know I'm going to be super broke, I wanted a bigger scholarship to go to law school, but it didn't work out, and for that reason, I probably can't get the suit I want. But bringing up stuff like that, a point of interest in the country is also pretty helpful, I think. I mean, I don't know what exactly put my application over the top, but I think that considering your country, host country, from several dimensions in answering this question is a good idea in general. Then they want you to answer the question, how are you academically prepared to be successful as a scholar abroad? And they also want you to discuss any significant academic difficulties you have faced. So for me, my academic difficulties were in high school, not in college. I did have some dual credit classes that brought down my GPA a bit, but I have a really good GPA, and so I don't really have to get into that much. But I do get into my youth, and part of this has to do with answering the next question, which is what examples of knowledge, skills, and experience can you draw upon to navigate a different environment abroad? And so I bring up the challenges that I had faced in my youth, and like socially and academically and what have you. And through that, I talk about the challenges instead of saying that I was, I'm first generation or that I'm from a rural community. I actually bring up the challenges that I faced because of those aspects, and then I say, I do kind of get to it a bit more directly, but I think that it's really useful to show, not tell, in your language here. Like explain what's going on by, and I do this at my intro. I think an intro is really important. Probably maybe the most important part of your essay is your intro, because it sets the tone for your personal statement, and it also hooks the reader. You got to remember that these people are reading a ton of applications, and so to make yours stand out, you definitely got to make a solid intro. And in my intro, I bring up this old story about the frog in the well from a book of Taoism called the Zhangzi. And so I relate my life to being this frog in the well. And so I talk about how I think I know the world, but I'm stuck here in Idaho. No offense to Idaho, and I'm from my rural background, and I maybe didn't come from money. And so I bring up these different aspects of myself, just in this intro, by putting up that allegory or what have you to the analogy, I suppose, to the frog in the well. And then I say, and I think that through the Gilman Scholarship and through going to Lancaster University, I can be the frog who escapes the well. So what I'm saying is that I'm this frog who's trapped, who can't, who hasn't been to a bunch of places and wants to explore the world, but I haven't been able to because I'm from the middle of nowhere and we didn't have money. And so, with your help, I can go to this place that I wouldn't otherwise be able to go to, and it'll be great. And that kind of covers some of what they're looking for, because they're looking for people from rural backgrounds and the like. And I think that it also paints a picture of my story and the intro to my story. And I think that's something that you might want to try and do in your application. It also shows a bit of cross-cultural experience with the Book of Taoism, which is Chinese literature, of course, ancient Chinese literature, Zhangzi, that I reference. So yeah, I think that could be really helpful. And then talking about how you're academically prepared, I think that going into any academic honors or achievements that you've received, maybe you've been in an honors program, maybe you have a good GPA, maybe what you do isn't necessarily all academic. Maybe you are a student representative, or you do other things that sort of show an interpersonal skill that sets you apart, or you've done some sort of initiative. All these different things are really good to bring. Like I bring up my student body experience at CSI, and I also bring up my time as a resident advisor in the dorms. So there's a lot of different things you can bring up. And if you've gone to conferences or any of those different things, I think that those could also be quite useful. And any challenges that you faced academically, some of those can be hard to explain, but it can be a bit easier if it's all during a certain period of time, obviously you know your circumstances better than other people do. But if you had just an off semester, or maybe you lost a loved one, or something terrible happened during a semester, you can let people know. As an example, I didn't have an issue, but last year I broke my femur, right at the top of the femur, so it technically counts as breaking your hip. And that could have caused me to have terrible grades, and it probably would have been a good reason too, because that's pretty rough recovery, and that's one of those sort of things that you could bring up in your application process and explain, well, this is why this is on my transcripts, because you do send in your transcripts, and that can be used to sort of explain some of the circumstances that you faced. And then what examples of knowledge, skills, and experiences you can be successful in navigating another environment. So I touch on the challenges that I faced throughout my life. I include things like being medically separated from the military, and growing up with my stepmom being sick, and then my disability, the degenerative disc disease that I have, and going through my academic journey, because I didn't start out wanting to get a bachelor's. I wanted to get a technical degree, and then it turned into a bachelor's because my degenerative disc stuff, and then I realized that it's my degenerative disc stuff is worse than I thought it was, so now I'm going to go to law school because all lawyers are spineless, so who needs a functioning back, right? Anyway, that's a joke that I make. Not all lawyers are spineless, but it is. Yeah, I think it's funny. Anyways, so be sure to try and explain some of these things. And it's 7,000 characters, by the way. I think I said 7,000 words. It's characters. My goodness, do 7,000 words, and that'll be really long, and you'll be not getting a scholarship. It's characters, because mine's only 1,000 words. So, oops. Anyways, yeah, I think that's my general advice. They also include questions to ask yourself after you've done your essay / while you're making it, to make sure that you have answered all the questions that they're interested in you answering. Like, do you make a connection between your program and goals? Do you make a connection between your host country and goals? Do you share how you will be academically successful on your program? Do you give examples of your experiences, skills, and knowledge that will help you navigate a different environment? Actually, and for that component, I bring up my trip to the Philippines, which was an amazing time, and I bring up, the language barrier and how I navigated that, and how good of a time I had. It was great, and how relatively easy it was to communicate with people who I didn't share another language with. Like, I was really surprised that your nonverbals, I guess, they can go a long way. And because I was with I went to go and visit a local there, and I was talking with her mom, and if her mom doesn't know any English, but somehow I felt like I understood what she said, and then when she went to talk to me, the local that I knew, she was like, my mom thought you understood like everything, and had like a whole conversation. I was like, yeah, I totally agree. It was great. So, experiences like that, if maybe you've been to Mexico or Canada, or maybe you've just been to like some place where the experience is just quite different than maybe the normal experience that people have, like going to the military or something, as an example. But yeah, if you have other questions about this specific essay, be sure to leave them down in the comments. I would love to answer them, and I would love to help you out. If you're at the University of Idaho, or you want to see an example of my essay, I can definitely send it to you if you would like that, because I feel like that could be useful. I can also go into more depth if people think that it's lacking in some of the information that they need. So just let me know, and I would love to help.